Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse. And this is Reverend Don's Vlog. And tonight our question comes to us from Fredz Zone, which is formerly DrakonumBlade, who, if you've followed the Vlog for a number of years, you will know is one of our more prolific question askers. And the question tonight has to do with a particular kind of anime. I believe it is pronounced Isekai Anime, which deals with the idea of a character being killed and then waking up in a video game type of environment, or a gaming type of environment. And this apparently is very popular in Japan. And the question being asked is, how do I feel about this concept metaphysically? You know, it's very interesting that that Fred asked this question less than 24 hours after Sir Ed and I had a conversation about this very thing. And that when you get that kind of synchronicity, it tends to suggest to me that it's kind of an important issue to discuss. And so I'm going to discuss it tonight, and I'm going to try not to ramble too much about it, although I probably will. Because there's actually a lot involved in the concepts behind this. So what we really have to do is to examine ideas about the afterlife first, and then this particular concept. So what I was taught about the afterlife is that for most people, what they're going to experience when they first awake in the afterlife, for want of a better way to put it, is what they expect. And the fewer expectations they have, the more broad their view, the closer it will be to reality. But whatever they've been led to expect is what they will first experience. So if they are expecting another world paradise, that's where they're likely to wake up. If they're expecting it to be very rural, they're probably going to experience it that way. If they expect it to be very urban, they'll probably experience it that way. They're actually experiencing the same thing. It's a matter of perception. And as they move farther from the life that has ended, that perception may drop away in favor of a clearer view of what's actually there. But at the same time, you may hold on to what's familiar to you while you're there. Now, if we look at traditional pagan treatment of the afterlife, you'll notice that this is the traditional view. If you look at the ancient Egyptians, they were very much about recreating a facsimile of their physical life in the afterlife, except better. And they believed that they could make it better by creating what we would describe as an astral environment. They had a wide range of grave goods that were magically empowered. Sometimes they were in the form of three-dimensional models. Sometimes they were actual items. Sometimes they were paintings. They believed that all of these could, for want of a better way to put it, come to life for them in the afterlife, which is kind of how we would describe the astral plane in terms of working with it. If you look at a lot of modern Eastern ancestral practices, you will see people making offerings of model houses and model cars and other items that their ancestors might desire in the afterlife, in the belief that these can be brought into being there through the act of offering them. And what does this have to do with the question? Well, obviously there is a very old belief, one that I incline to share, that you can create in the afterlife the environment you desire, either consciously or unconsciously, if we can use those terms in describing the afterlife. So could you wake up in your favorite game? Well, if you really wanted to, I think that yes, you could. It would still be the actual afterlife. It'd be how you'd be perceiving it. But I think you could choose that perception if it's the one that you wanted. And again, the longer you're there, the less that desired perception will rule what you're seeing and feeling. Over time, I would think it would drop away. But certainly beginning, and perhaps always as a flavor, I do believe that you could impose that structure on your afterlife. Lady Crystal in Living the Wiccan Life, wrote about a very interesting practice for creating your path into the afterlife before it's time to actually transition, including where you're going, creating your little astral realm, for want of a better way to put it. And people who work with astral temples, to some extent, are doing the same thing. So what I would say is that, yes, you can certainly create the astral surroundings you will experience in the form that you want them, or unconsciously in the form you expect them. And this does not change the fact that what you're experiencing is the same as everyone else is experiencing, but how you're perceiving it can be pretty much tailor-made, I think. Now, having said that, one of the things that I have been told is that there are many places in the afterlife, or in the other world if we prefer, and that not everyone is in exactly the same place. And I think that this is part of why that is, that not only individuals, but groups of affiliated souls can create the lifestyle that they desire, for want of a better way to put it, and still remain motivated by the things that motivated them in life in some ways. I want to say hello to Eric, who is joining us from New York, from Brooklyn. Welcome, Eric. And so I think that not only do I agree that this could be done, but I think it's actually a rather traditional pagan point of view. Certainly not the only one, but certainly a very old and venerable one. And it is exactly the same as working with the astral plane when you're alive. So can you shape your afterlife in that way or another way? Again, I think yes. Now, this also depends on who you are, on what your spiritual awareness is. I think that the more we work with these things when we're living, the more clearly we will see them when we've crossed. I come from a background with a belief that people who do this sort of work often become spirit guides, and even some who don't. And hello to Noreen from Virginia. It's good to see you, Noreen. And obviously, in that situation, you must see things pretty clearly as they are. However, I still would say that perhaps in terms of aesthetics, it will very much still reflect your internal world. So these are my thoughts on the subject. And if anyone who is watching at the moment has anything they would like to add to the question, we can go forward a little bit. I want to point out, I almost never address questions about the afterlife without plugging my favorite movie on the subject. And that movie is The Adding Machine, which I believe is from 1969, starred Milo O'Shea and Phyllis Diller. Not just any film that starred Phyllis Diller. She didn't have a lot of starring roles, but she was memorable when she did. And numerous other people in the film. But part of the film deals with the main character who has killed his wife, who is Phyllis Diller, been executed, and then is in the afterlife. And the way they portrayed the afterlife, I think, pretty much describes it. Everything you could want was laid out. All you had to do was take it. You could have endless enjoyment if that's what you desired. However, many people did not. Because they had not done their shadow work, because they had not resolved their internal issues, they could not accept the happiness that was available there. They were still dealing with those issues because they were still carrying them. Hello, Arlene. Good to see you in the chat room. And I think that this is very much the nature of the soul and the afterlife. As long as you are still tied into things, you are still brought back to them. And Eric points out that one of his favorite movies about the afterlife is Albert Brooks' Defending Your Life. And I've not actually seen that one. I probably would want to have a look at that. My understanding, and we're ranging a little far afield from the question, but we'll do that, So when we talk about karma, we're talking about attachment. It's very much the Buddhist view of karma. And those things we're attached to drag us back to those things. Um, and so until we have disattached um, from everything, we will always come back into this world because we're being pulled by those attachments. And a great deal of metaphysical practice, in my view, is working with healing those attachments, releasing those attachments. That's why in the Correllian tradition, we deal so much with shadow work, so much with things like soul retrieval, karmic disentanglement. And um, when talking about our perceptions of the afterlife, I think obviously the fewer attachments you have, the clearer your view will be. I think for people who are heavily attached, um, they will perceive what they expect and perhaps never see beyond it. And I want to say hello to Amy Palmer from Boston. And um, these are basically the things that I would say. And Arlene is mentioning collateral beauty, another another portrayal of the afterlife. Um, Eric has mentioned no exit, and there have been many, and I think a number of them must be regarded as having relevance. But of course, the way you find out whether they're relevant or not is you do the work. When you work with the spirits, when you work with mediumship, you in fact experience these things and or learn about them firsthand. And when I say that something strikes me as being a fairly accurate depiction, it's based on these experiences and what I've either experienced or been told by those that I have worked with. So, going back to our original question to wrap up, do I believe that you could um, form your afterlife into your favorite game? I don't see any reason you could not. If an Egyptian can um, animate the models they have placed in their tombs, um, if contemporary Asian ancestors can inhabit um, the paper mansion that was burned on the altar and experience it as an actual mansion, I would say that you can shape your afterlife however you want it, on the understanding that it's a matter of perceiving what is actually there. So I hope that explains what I'm trying to say. At the top of the hour, I'll be doing Chancellor's Chat, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, every Monday night since 1998. Last night, we did Virtual Circle, ritual for Ostara and Mabon, with the Temple of Arcier, which was a wonderful experience. If you haven't seen the ritual, I would encourage you to watch it. And I want to say hello to Violet Willow, who is also in the chat room. Thank you, Violet Willow. It's good to see you. It's good to see everyone. And with that, I think I will ask you to hit like, subscribe, or share, depending on where you're seeing this, whether you're seeing it on Facebook, whether you're seeing it on YouTube, whether you're seeing it on Pagan World or other places. We do try to get out as far as we can. And thank you, everyone. Some of you I will see in Chancellor's Chat. And in general, until next time, may you blessed be.